Hi, today I would like to read from the Brazilian novel Amor e o Meteoro by Joca Reiners Terron. It's published in Brazil in 2019 by Todavia. It's an important and timely novel as it deals with the flight of the remaining few members of the fictional Kaajapukugi tribe from a devastated Amazon rainforest to the mountains of Mexico, a story that intertwines with the lives of an indigenous expert and explorer and defender of the tribe, and of the principal narrator, a recently orphaned anthropologist, in whose hands the fate of the exiles lies. Joca Reiners Terron is a Brazilian novelist, poet, editor, and designer. He has published 8 novels and won the Machado de Assis Prize in 2010, as well as being nominated for the Jabuti Prize in 2017 and the Sao Paulo Prize for Literature 3 times. His most recent novel, The Laughter of Rats, was published in Brazil last year. My name is James Young, and I'm a translator, writer, and editor. This year I won the Peirene Prize for literary translation, and I'm currently translating Amor, Homens, Avulsos by Victor Heringer. The subject matter of Amor e Meteor perhaps seems more relevant than ever following recent tragic events in the Amazon. And after speaking with Joca, we would both like to dedicate this translation and recording to the memories of Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira, and all those who have given their lives defending the Amazon and the people who legitimately call it home. Death and Meteor by Joca Reiners Terron. Epigraph. No man is the king of fucking anything. The Metropolitan Indians. 1. Great Evil. Today I see what happened as the irrevocable epilogue of the colonial psychosis in the Americas, which I wish had been merely one more lie dictated by the victors, and not the whimpered truth of another defeat, this time undoubtedly final. In the beginning, the 50 Kaajapukugi were to go to Canada. Having departed from the Amazon, from a place hotter than hell, where the equatorial rains no longer fell as torrentially as they once had, they would have struggled to adapt to the sub-zero rigors of the Canadian climate. So they ended up in Oaxaca. If the arid plains here were no good to them, nowhere else in the world resembled the Amazon jungle or what was left of it. A few dozen hectares of agonized trees on their way to being incinerated by the sun. The Kaajapukugi, an isolated tribe that refused contact with the white man, lived in a desert landscape for which they were unprepared. Coming here would make an enormous difference. They were being hunted down in their birthplace. The way out was to bring them to the eternal mountains of Huautla. There were no more than 50 Kaajapukugi, the last survivors of their people, their last 50 heads with a price on them. I was made responsible for the case by the Federal Immigration Secretary, Amor, nominated for the role by the Institutional Revolutionary Party. The fact that he put me in charge must have been the final flicker of the monotonous synaptic life of that neuronally underprivileged individual, a last and desperate justification for his useless existence. And so I savoured my sufferings of a bureaucrat, squeezed into an office of the National Commission for the Development of Indigenous Peoples, halfway between the fan and the filing cabinet, and around an arm's length from the table, where the coffee pot exhaled its last breaths. My parents had died a couple of months earlier, as if they'd agreed upon it, to disturb me just one last time, and forevermore, so that, as well as being a recent orphan and the inheritor of an old villa in the historic centre of Oaxaca, I was also a middle-aged bachelor, and no longer had any hope of marrying or having children. In those days it seemed to me that the merit of the experience of taking part in an episode of the misadventure of political exiles, perhaps the most unexpected and dire situation in this long, even absurd history, a mass flight from the continent-sized penitentiary that is South America, would be a way of relieving myself from the grief and loneliness in which I'd ended up. It was, perhaps, my last opportunity to take care of someone, to attribute some sense to my life and those of others. In short, it was the last bet on the survival of the last 50 Kaajapukugi, from the last idea, also the first and only, of a mediocre politician, carried out by the last Sertanista and a recently widowed old Mazatec who represented the last of his shamanic lineage. I was also down to my last. There was no way it could go wrong.